Hey, what's up, everyone? My name's Lionel. I'm your host for LT Productions, and you are watching another edition of SoundByte. I'm coming to you because I wanted to cover a very profound interview that happened this week between Mr. Carlos King and Mr. Matthew Knowles, who is most famous, who is the father of the impeccable Miss Beyonce Giselle Knowles. What is Jay-Z's last name? I don't know. Sorry. But anyways, I enjoyed the interview so much. I've watched it 3 times. That's how much I enjoyed it that much. I do believe that this was a defining moment for Mr. Carlos King. And also, I know that Mr. Carlos King is just in his vein. He's finding the folk that probably didn't have a voice or got lost within this whole gossip. They're saying this, they're saying that, and they're able to only point out the bad things or even lie to make you out to be the villain and all this, da 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 da. And he's able to find people and just pick them up out and allow people to at least get liked and possibly know something different about a person, that instead of how it is skewed throughout media. So Mr. Matthew Knowles is one of them, and I was very blessed to just be able to sit and to hear what he has to say and his upbringing and his career, his transitions from corporate America into the music realm, his legacy and all of that, and even how he feels shunned from being recognized for who he is and just being, oh, that's Beyonce's dad. No. But we'll get into all of that. So I appreciate everyone for coming to my channel. Like this video. You can also subscribe. Please leave your comments below. Now let's get into this interview. All right. I kind of found this interview to be like a masterclass instead of an interview. Mr. Carlos King, he went to Mr. Matthew's home and was greeted. He was dancing to Beyonce's Deja Vu. All that. Look, all I can say is, again, Mr. Carlos is in his vein, and he's able to get in there. And he gagged me that he was able to get him, because I never would have thought, he wasn't in my mind that is just someone that Mr. Carlos was really going after, or really going to have a target or someone on his show. I didn't know. But anyways, keep gagging me, Mr. King, please. All right, so Mr. Matthew ended up talking about his early life and upbringing. He grew up in Gaston, Alabama. This was during pre-civil rights era. He faced racism by being spit on and experiencing electric prods. When he got into his adult years, that's when he sought therapy. And then I was thinking, like, man, how many people really need therapy from all of this? You know, black folks are just taught to just toughen up and go through it and go on. But really, what is the residue of what happened? Jim Crow, slavery, post-Jim Crow, civil rights era, post-civil rights era. And I think that we've been going around unhealed and not really able to talk about our trauma because we're getting gaslit, or trying to attempt to gaslight us from the white population. Get over it. Slavery was so time ago. And now they are trying to be the new victims because victim is the new black. According to them, you know. So yeah, how many people actually need some therapy after everything they went through, you know? He also highlights the entrepreneurial spirit of his parents and grandparents, who instilled hope and also ambition in him. He talks about his corporate career. He worked at Xerox and other places, and we'll get into that. He noted that Xerox was ranked by Forbes repeatedly as the best corporation for black people. I wish I would have known that before this week. Like, that's some legacy. I think that there's a lot of legacy just in Texas that we're just not really used to. The biggest thing that we hear from Texas is about that wall that they're trying to build to keep out any foreigners or illegal people that don't belong here in America. And the last thing regarding just black people, all we hear about Texas is the Texas massacre. And what that had to deal with is that there was this massacre, as it has been done in other states, in other cities, and why we're even, at least in Texas, there was this, basically white people came over and infiltrated that land and burned everything down. Just like you may have seen the movie Rosewood, that was back in like the late 90s, early 2000s, with Bing Rames, and also Esther Rolle was in there, and some other people that were in there too. So, yeah. But also we can say that we got Family Empire Houston, and we also got Heart Hustle Houston out of there as far as black people. So, hey, there's something, I guess. But yeah, I would have never thought that. That's not taught anywhere. That's not taught in the history books, nothing. So thank you, Mr. Matthew, for bringing that out. Knowles recounts how he got a job at Xerox. It was in 1976 after being overheard by an HR representative at happy hour. Xerox had a reputation as a top corporation for black professionals. He later became the first black person in America to sell MRI and CT scanners at Picker International, which becomes Philips in 1988. So then I was thinking of the movie that Will Smith was in, and now I forgot what it was. He had his son Jaden in it. Lord. But that, I was like, wait. Because he was selling all those scanners, but then also trying to get on the New York Stock Exchange. I was like, oh, it sounded very familiar in regards to that, but hey, Mr. Knowles has his story. But he then worked as a neurosurgical specialist for Johnson & Johnson, more in the sales and corporate realm. They talk a little bit about when he met Miss Tina Knowles Lawson. He shares a humorous story about how they met his former wife at a party where he initially corrected her for holding his vinyl records incorrectly. Then he talked about when they were supposed to be meeting to go on their little date. She told him where to meet him at. He said he met her there. Met her where she said to be at, but he got it wrong. And she ended up saying, no, fool. So they had that first argument. But anyways, they worked things out and eventually got married. He said something. He basically came up with the name Beyonce. I remember him saying that during the interview. I didn't write it down. But yeah, he did actually say something to his former wife before they were even married or anything about Beyonce. Interesting. Now, with him being in corporate America, he did want to let it be known that he did not quit his corporate job just to lift up Beyonce's career. That wasn't it. He was transitioning out of corporate America. Mr. Carlos did ask, how did you handle it, especially if you weren't seeing much return of, okay, like you got to get it together. If you don't get it, if y'all don't hit gold or hit or strike oil within this amount of time, what's up? We said that he somewhat did not have that much to worry about. However, he was investing a lot into the musical acts that he had under his belt. Now, let's take in mind, Mr. Knowles did not start off with Destiny's Child or even their first group. Was that called Girl Troop? Girl something? Whatever it was. He had other musical acts. He signed a guy named Little O first, before even Destiny's Child. He had his own music label at the time, or music company. Anyways, as far as he was saying, he also had a business with his wife. They had their own hair salon that was making over $1 million. So they were still good. However, the investments weren't really paying off at that time. And he said that he almost lost their home, but it did not happen, thank God. All he knows is that he did a lot of risk taking, and then he was a visionary. He left Xerox in 1988, and then he was with the Johnsons. So there was an 8-year time gap in between even leaving those corporate jobs. What he did is that he went back to school. He wanted to learn a lot more about the business realm, the music business realm. So how he was able to do what he did is because of his corporate mind, business mind, and then also him studying to be sharp, to actually know what he's doing within the music business. And all I can do is commend him for that. He said he had another artist, UGK, and it was turning quite ghetto at the time, so he kind of just left the whole rap scene alone. He also talked about when Beyonce, Kelly, and all of them were in that girl group, and they were on Star Search, and they ended up losing. He had already recommended to one of the other managers not to have them do rap, because he studied the show and he was looking at the judges. Like, these are 50-year-old middle-aged white men. They're not going to be able to connect with rap. But the other manager of that group was like, no, we're going to stick with that. They lost. After it, he was kind of just conflicted as to what to do. How do I actually help my girls right now who are devastated that they didn't win? He talked with Ed McMahon about it, and Ed McMahon gave some advice. I know I got it. Oh, he spoke with Ed McMahon, who told him the groups who lose on Star Search often go on to achieve greater success because they are driven to change and rededicate themselves. Because guess what happened after that? They became a more female empowerment girl group. Ed McMahon did list Boyz II Men, Britney Spears, Justin Timberlake, and Alanis Morissette were all on Star Search, and they lost. I said, well, he's right. You know, I kind of got another series that I do want to come out with at some point, and that is about where are all these contestants from American Idol and The Voice. Even the winners, you don't really see anything happening with them. So it's interesting. But anyway, enough about that for now. He discusses a little bit about his artist development and the challenges with that. You know, he would have the ladies, the young women, the young girls, run in heels. And he said, you know, a lot of that was just conditioning them to have stamina to be on the stage. He wanted them to practice in heels so that he was showing them how to practice is how you play. So you always got to stay ready, and you got to be ready for anything to happen. What if the lights go out? What if the speaker goes out? What if your heel falls off? What are you gonna do? What if you fall? Shout out to Michelle. But yeah, I mean, the show must go on. So yeah. Now we get to a deeper part in regards to what Matthew Knowles' imprint is on the music industry. And it's the lack of recognition. At this point, Matthew is just talking about different things and hearing the questions that Mr. Carlos is giving. And he's like, you know, we're going into documentary territory, and I really think that we should do a documentary together. We both got to own it, though, you know. And he said, definitely. I said, look at this path, this door, this window of opportunity that has been opened up right there in the midst. Like, this had to happen. That's why I said that this was a defining moment for Mr. Carlos in many ways. I mean, he was able to open up relationship. He did say that in the beginning of the interview, he never heard of Carlos King, but his wife, Gina, did know, because Mr. Carlos had already contacted for Matthew Knowles, but he didn't know. But somehow he was talking with Miss Gina about it, and she said, oh, he's good, get him. And by her word, that's how Carlos was able to book this interview. I said, yes, I'm telling you, it's about your connections. You don't know who's watching you, and you don't know who the angels that are prepared to work on your behalf. And that's why you got to be you at all times, and to be ready at all times, because you may not be the person to get the job done. You may need somebody else. And I'm learning that myself, because I'm kind of just more the independent person, but it's just, and there's other things in the back of my mind and how I feel about myself and how I feel about others just excelling and got this going on and got this connection. And it doesn't seem like that they had to work it all to get there. I'm learning to just try to work every avenue I have and let God do a lot more than me that's thinking that I got to come up with everything, you know. But I need to make sure that I'm working myself. So I was just in awe that through Miss Gina is the reason Mr. Carlos is in the Knowles home right now. Yeah, so the lack of recognition. If I was a white Matthew Knowles, I would be recognized. And I think it's true, because Mr. Carlos asked the question, does it ever bother you? Like, we got Clive Davis and some other music executives, you know, they get recognized all the time for their work. He's like, yeah. He says that how he starts listing some of his accomplishments. He says that Billboard is probably the most accurate way in regards to really getting what's actually true out there as facts. During the year 2000 through the year of 2009, as far as who were the top 100 artists that were out there, Beyonce came in 7th, Destiny Child came in 8th, and Jay-Z was 9th. He was able to open up in the gospel world, a music world gospel, through Michelle. You know, she's done 3 or 4 projects of her own. When Jesus says yes, nobody can say no. Trinity 5-7. Oh my God. I was like, I didn't even know that they were under them, under Matthew Knowles, I don't think, you know. And Juanita Bynum, Brian Courtney Wilson, whom I do recognize. I have heard some of his music before. And he even had a partnership with BET with Sunday Best. Leandria Johnson was on his record label. And I didn't know that was the route for whatever reason, I didn't study. Fun fact about me, season 2 of Sunday Best, I did try out. I didn't go far, but I did try out. And I might pick myself up again and do it again. You know, it's been some time, but I might do it again. But yeah, he ended up selling, what is his brand? He ended up selling his music company and to a company within London. He became partners, and they ended up creating a label with Sanctuary. And their artists were Sunshine Anderson, Earth, Wind and Fire, and he's proud that he's made other people millionaires. Kendu, who was Mary J. Blige's manager, Troy Carter, who's connected to Gaga, also the manager that was connected to Nelly. And he said it's not by just chance that Nelly and Kelly got to do their project, their music together, and also for Lady Gaga and Beyonce. It's just not by chance that this happened. I was setting up different deals to make them a whole lot more noticeable. He said, you know, in regards to Columbia Records, their budget was $1 million for whatever needed to happen. He said, cool. So he went out there and he was getting brand deals. He wanted to brand the women, and it was good that they had women empowerment music to help brand them so that he could get with L'Oreal and everyone else. You know, he did all that extra stuff so they could actually have more revenue. We can really play a whole lot more. He had a bigger vision even when he decided that the different ladies needed to go solo. Michelle, you do your gospel. Kelly, he wanted to get her international and to be a pop star. He says that people got in her ear and she went a different direction. However, she's still a lot more notable in Australia and the UK. Let's see. He talks about his success with Solange. I'm glad he did that also. Let's see. He talked about this book, and I'm going to get it. I think it was called, I went over it again to try to see what it was called. I think it's called Outliers by Mr. Gladwell. He has a quote saying, "To be great requires you doing it for over 10,000 hours. This is not a microwave success thing that poof. You can get popular on social media. That doesn't mean that you're going to be a success. It's still, I know people like to say grind. It's still, you got to work rigorously in order to get what you really want if you're trying to be this superstar that you are." What I did love, what Matthew Knowles said, you know, I could recognize stars. And Carlos, you're a star. I said, if you know about Carlos, I know this had to speak to him. It had to speak to him greatly because that's what he's about. Carlos King, because he has this production company where people can pitch ideas to him and he's able to tell instantly who's a star and who's not. If you listen to Mr. Carlos King's podcast over the years, that's how he knew. That's how he knew that Melody Cherie, I won't call her by her new name, but back then it was Holt. He knew that Melody was the star. And he made their dreams come true. So I know that had a blessing. I know that had to have a big impact that someone else now is able to affirm him in that way. And I'm sure he knows that. However, it's good to have now in a more prophetic way, what you put out there is being given back to you. We talked about that. Yeah, you can't have $1 million ideas and working minimum wage. That's not going to help. Does he miss the music business? He says no, he misses the corporate world. If he knew that Beyonce, Solange, and Kelly and all them were set and all that, he would have went back to corporate world a long time ago because he just really thinks that he's the ish. And I'm just saying that. That's not what he said, but yeah. Carlos did bring up about two people that he feels is very disrespected within the music realm and not acknowledged for what they have had their impact. And that is Mr. Matthew Knowles and Mr. Joe Jackson. Carlos did say he gets known for, well, you whipped your kids. You whipped your kids. And that right there, I don't know if we could just simplify it as just whipping your kids. They were terrified of him, and he was a bully. That's how they felt. And that's just that. However, I do think that you're right, Mr. Carlos, in regards to the impact that he did have. Like, the structure that he did have those boys under, there's no way that we would have had a black representation of a family group making it. And I know that more credit should go to him in regards to that. And I really think the children do give him credit for that. Look, they still credited Joe Jackson even during their family movie. American Dream, the Jacksons, the American Dream, that was back in what, 92? Yeah, they do give him credit. I don't think that the music industry does. Not at all. It's just that he's only known for the bad without the good, without any of the good. Now the question could be asked, does the bad overshadow the good? I don't know. That's a question, and that's the answer that only us individually that have our own perspective of what took place. But Matthew did say, I agree. He did say that Joe Jackson had a more musical standpoint as to how he was molding his children. This was a band. The Jackson 5, they were more of a band. Mine was more of a group. A lot of success that we had is from his corporate mindset, the business mindset. He actually brought forth macro management. So, and that's when he said, Carlos, you're a star. He talked about strategic partners, and I already talked about L'Oreal. He was talking about brand development and all of that. It's no chance that Michelle is still in Broadway. He set up Evita back in the day. That was her first play that she was a part of. She got to be a part of Color Purple, all of that. You know, it was strategically to move them into different avenues because the record business is only going to get you so far. And I think that should be celebrated because he was a business marketer that really pushed these women up to the front, that we still know them and love them. And I mean, if the Supremes had the same touch as the Destiny Child, that would have been wonderful to actually see. But of course, it didn't happen that way. Motown did the best that they could for what they had, and they were actually able to move over into the crossover so that the music could be flourishing amongst a more non-black crowd, you know? So, Matthew, he talks about being a cancer survivor. He had male breast cancer, and while that was going on, he had COVID too. He says over 22,000 a year men are diagnosed with male breast cancer. 1 in 8 men will have at least be diagnosed with breast cancer. He says that he has BRCA2, that he has a higher risk of having prostate cancer. He said something that I thought was very well, and everybody has their way of developing their creativity or drawing their creativity. He says that he looks out the window. Some people go and sit by some water and get creative about whatever's going on. You know, I thought that was cool. He just let that be known. He talks about the proudest moments. Blue Ivy, as far as his family. Blue Ivy, she was just supposed to be like a one and done type of, I think there was some type of dance with the Lion King or something to that nature in London. After her performance, her friend ended up talking badly about her online. And what Blue Ivy decided to do is to go practice. She didn't feed into the negativity. She allowed it to push her into saying, hey, you know, I got to be better at my craft. Some people see some faults in me and I got to do better. And she rose to the challenge instead of crumbling. Failure and mistakes are opportunities. And I needed to hear that also. Jules, what is his proudest moment? He says that they went out to lunch one day and he was saying, you know, I'm so happy I got my bank account, got credit cards, and I saved all my receipts. Rumi and Sir, they're still young and they still have their proud moments have yet to come. Michelle is the connector of why DC3 stayed together. She was the one that was always, she didn't complain and all that good stuff, blah, 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 blah. Kelly, It Girl, oh, this is when he talks about the whole international part. She went off the script, but however, she still, they talk about Commander, the song with David Guetta. She says, you know, that's the vein I really wanted her to go in, blah, 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 but he's still proud of her because she's still very prominent. What, she did The Voice somewhere, I think in Australia or somewhere, and really international folks. I think that they are bigger fans than the United States when it comes to American artists. I really do. LaToya. He actually says that they had a private lunch before even the sighting of them having a private lunch beforehand. He said that was private and he didn't want to go into what went on. So, hey, he said it was a Jedi mind trick. When you think you know, you don't know. Beyonce. No, she's just a good person. Even if she wasn't an artist, she's just a great, good-hearted person. As far as him being, he said this, as far as recognition, he said that if I was a white man, I would be on The View. Because what happened is Carlos opened up that he was an intern at The View at the time that there was this performance that Destiny Child had to be on or whatever. But yeah. And he looked at the camera and said, I would be on the show if I was a white person, Whoopi. I said, okay. I don't think that Whoopi has any pull like that. I don't think. I would have to really search that out. But obviously the producers could really do that. But there's no sense in him not being down in music history at all. I mean, he could get an honorary Grammy for something. There's some type of award out there for him that he should be acknowledged. NAACP could. I mean, if we're just going to say that he stepped out on his wife and had a baby, that's so crazy. And that he's Beyonce's daddy, that's crazy. He did way more than that. And y'all can just act like Beyonce is Beyonce because of her power couple stands with Jay-Z. No. Beyonce was still Beyonce. Beyonce kind of really became something different after she did break off from Matthew Knowles. I think so. But she wouldn't have gotten there without the foundation of Matthew Knowles. Sorry. Solange. He talks about this time. One thing about Solange is that she was always doing stuff out of normal. She would be wearing stripes and all this good stuff. She was supposed to do a paper about poetry. And she wrote about Nas. And the teacher failed her and said, this isn't poetry. And she fought for that and said, yes, it is. I mean, that is what rap is, for real, with poetry. And she was getting a petition to get this teacher removed. Basically, she's one that is going to stand her ground and make it be known, like, no, this is what's up. He talks about a time that when he was going through, he's proud of the song Cranes in the Sky. And he was listening off some of the music lyrics and all that. And that song really helped him. Look, I'm going to tell you this much. I'm not a parent, but I know it has to be something. When a parent says that, my child blessed me. Not so much, the child ends up taking care of it. We get that. But when a person says that my child blessed me, she's inspiring me. That's incredible. That's incredible for any person to hear. He talked about the song Daddy that Beyonce had. He said when he first heard it, he was in business mode. And he was critiquing the song and didn't really hear the song. He said after a while, he apologized to Beyonce and he listened to the song now and he just about breaks down every time. He appreciates that song and Beyonce's effort before that song. What would you want your legacy to be? He says, I don't want to write my legacy. I want others to do it. I want them to list my body of work, my impact, my success and failures. He uses an analogy about his life. He was trying to get to a room, his hotel room, and he was asking the bellman, okay, so when are we going to get to my room? And he said, it's not about the destination, it's about your journey, sir, is what the bellman told him. And that's how he has described his life. He's not been the best person all the time, but he's been able to grow and learn himself. And he's done a lot of things since whenever you've heard any of his failures. And that's just that on that. Mr. Carlos ends up saying, this is what I want to say about your legacy. You are the greatest music manager in the music business. I agree. I would really put him at the caliber of Mr. Berry Gordy. I would. Berry Gordy had his certain cross the bear, if you want to call it, not cross the bear. He had his own part, and that is someone I actually study too, Mr. Berry Gordy. I do study him. I would put him in that category. Then the last question they asked about a music video that Beyonce and Alicia Keys were doing. Matthew Knowles tried to play it off, but then he ended up saying, when they were shooting this video, they were in the hood and ghetto of Rio. Sony Records did not pay any of the gangsters that were a part of this video. I guess there was some type of snippet that came out, but never nothing or whatever. And he said basically that crew had to be helicoptered out of that region because obviously them gangsters did not play. Carlos ended it there. And of course, a lot of people online were like, why didn't you follow up? He's not a good journalist. Carlos later explained, look, I had an hour with him. And I wanted to respect his time. Plus, there is going to be a documentary. It could be shared there. But for a lot of people that want to know everything, cool. I know how I look, but Carlos respects time. So again, shout out to Mr. Carlos. You did well. And shout out to Mr. Matthew Knowles. Thank you for letting me know more concerning what you have going on. I respect you more, even than what I had before. You know, I think you get a lot of punishment for things while others get to be celebrated. Just saying. You know, I won't even go there. I'm just gonna leave it like that. Again, I think this is a defining moment for Carlos. There's another shift that's coming abroad with his company, Kingdom Brain Entertainment. I'm glad that you make a way for yourself through God. It don't matter if you're not on national syndicated television. You said, I'm going to be a television host. And that's just what happened. And that's what is happening. And I'm proud of you, Mr. Carlos. And I study you also. And that's why I stay as close as I can through the internet, through you. No, I don't have a close personal relationship with you, but I'm going to champion for you and cheer you on because I know that there's greatness inside of you and there's something I got to get out of you. And I also just love celebrating you and supporting you. So I'm looking forward to the documentary, but y'all let me know. Hopefully you guys seen the interview and all that. But that's all I do have for this. And we'll see what the next interview is. Stay tuned to my channel. Keep your notifications on for stuff that's going on my channel. Some more reality shows. I'm going to be covering another TV show that's on Netflix that was just released called Boots. It's very interesting. Y'all go check that out. Check out my reviews on that. And I'll be doing a little bit more news within the world, the media realm, and all that good stuff. But please like this video, subscribe, and until the next one, peace.